Peaches.
Hello.
Have you seen the new Omnia video?
Yeah.
Are you gonna respond? Give them the own of a century?
Fuck no.
Oh. Fine. I guess I'll just do it myself. Omnia is an art YouTuber I've had drama with in the past, and while we resolved that drama and while for a point in time I was friends with Omnia, it would be a lie to tell you I'm not in some capacity biased against them. That being said, I don't think it'll affect your viewing experience in this video. Before this video begins, if you are new to the channel, I would appreciate if you could subscribe. This is probably going to be a long one, and I'm back on the grind to upload more frequently, so I'd appreciate any support on the content. And as my birthday is in 3 days as you're watching this video, I would appreciate if anyone could subscribe to help me reach that big milestone of 100k just before I turn 18. That being said, let's get right into the video. On the 16th of July 2022, Omnia released a video titled The Commentary Community's Biggest Flaw, and I and many other creators had issues with this video because it gatekept trauma, plagiarized artwork in the thumbnail and the speed paint, and had some really bad takes surrounding the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard situation. It was so bad in fact that it currently sits at 2.5 thousand dislikes to only 1,000 likes, and Hopeless Peaches made a video responding to it that currently has 100,000 views. Which obviously led to Omnia responding to Peaches in a video titled Addressing Hopeless Peaches Accusations, and it's even worse than the first video, I'll just be completely honest. I'm gonna start this video by going over all of the issues with the commentary community's biggest flaw, and then we're gonna address the Peaches video, which I also got a funny mention in, where they just blatantly lie and try and gaslight me, so that's gonna be really fun. Let's just get into it.
Hi guys, gals, gays, and envays, it's Omnia, and today in this video I want to examine what I consider to be the commentary community's biggest flaw. The many examples of it happening both in the past few years and more recently, and the simple ways commentary channels can learn to correct this behavior in the future. That being the mishandling of serious, abusive, or traumatic situations for the purpose of entertainment, drama, and financial gain. Firstly, I think it's important to distinguish the differences between trauma and drama, which may seem obvious to most people, but is obviously something that certain commentary channels and individuals who spend a lot of time on the internet struggle with. So I thought it necessary to include a very quick formal explanation for those of you who need a reminder or would like to learn a little bit more about what typically counts as traumatic and what typically counts as dramatic. Without further ado, here's my very speedy language lesson. But today, in this clip, we're gonna go through the differences between drama and trauma. I know for most people that is a pretty obvious distinction. Most people know the differences between the two words. However, as a person who has been running a commentary channel for about 2 years now, and someone who has a semi-active Twitter account, I can guarantee you that most people on the internet don't really know the main differences between the two, and so I thought it would be relevant to make a really quick video to go through the definitions and make a really quick distinction between the two, because it might help unblur that line for people who do struggle with figuring out the differences between trauma and drama. So let's just get started. When you search up trauma on Google, this is what comes up. A deeply distressing or disturbing experience. Emotional shock following a stressful event or a physical injury, which may be associated with physical shock and sometimes leads to long-term neurosis. Physical injury. When you search up drama on Google, this is what the definition is. A play for theater, radio, or television. An exciting, emotional, or unexpected series of events or set of circumstances. When you look at the second definition of drama, you can kind of see that there is a little bit of similarity, right? It's a exciting, emotional, or unexpected series of events or sets of circumstances. And that's kind of similar to trauma, right?
I wouldn't personally define trauma as exciting, but I think you're referring to emotional. So I kinda get what you're saying.
But I would say the main and easy litmus test between trauma and drama is severity, intensity. Always look at how severe or intense that event is. And there tends to be other symptoms of trauma more so than there is of drama. And that tends to show up somatically. So what I mean by that is that when something traumatic happens to someone, that tends to show up in their body or the way that they behave. So with someone who has experienced a traumatic event, they may get diagnosed with PTSD, they may need increased therapy or medication. Sometimes they have changes in behavior, like somatic changes, for example, weight loss or weight gain. Sometimes they have a lot of nightmares or hallucinations, they can have insomnia, stuff like that. That is often a sign of trauma. Whereas with drama, there tends to be a lot less physical symptoms. Though there can be, right? There's just tends to be less intensity, less severity. And that's why I say when you want to distinguish between trauma and drama, the easiest way is to run a litmus test about how severe it is. So with trauma, it tends to be abuse, threats of violence, death, things like that. Whereas with drama, those tend to be pretty lukewarm experiences that a lot of people go through. For example, having a falling out with a friend, or getting a bad grade, or arguing with your parents, or getting offended over something that someone said online. That typically is drama. Most of the time, the way that I distinguish the two is it something that happens on any odd given day, right? Does a loved one die any odd given day? Does someone get harassed and stalked and abused on any odd given day? Does someone fear for their life on any odd given day? No.
In this clip, Omnia defines most drama as a lukewarm experience and provides examples including cheating. Now, I'm sorry, Omnia. If you believe being cheated on can't in any capacity be traumatic, you are out of your mind. And I know Omnia later in their follow-up video says they meant cheating on a test, but I'm gonna be 100% serious. I don't fucking believe that for a second. There is no way you wrote the word cheating and it didn't even click in your mind for a second that people could misunderstand that. I don't believe it. And I know some people have said they don't want to believe that you were ignorant enough to write cheating without meaning cheating on a test and without this being a genuine mistake. But regardless, I'm going to address it as if you meant cheating in a relationship, because that's how I took it, that's how most people took it, and that's how I believe it was intended, unless you just made a massive mistake in this video. Cheating can be extremely traumatic to people. Having a several year-long relationship where you were very close with someone, thought you could trust them, planned potentially to get married with them, and then to know that they were behind your back, sleeping with other people or flirting with other people can be very traumatizing. It can ruin your entire self-image, make you lose trust and confidence in the people you're dating, and more. Do you want to know why I know that, Omnia? Because I was cheated on, and when I was cheated on, it completely ruined my self-image. In fact, it's affected how I view myself and how comfortable I am trusting my partner in relationships since. But that doesn't matter, I guess, because Omnia has determined that I'm not in any capacity traumatized by what happened, and that it could have no long-lasting effects on my life because it's just a lukewarm experience. Do you see how wrong this fucking gatekeeping is? And even then, as Ponder highlighted in a comment on Peach's video, there are still so many problems with the way they're defining drama and trauma. In Ponder's comment, they say, the sad and completely overlooked by Omnia reality is that traumatic situations can be categorized as drama depending on how they're contextualized. For example, from Ponder's own experiences, when their father cheated, you could have classified that as drama. But it's considered trauma because their father cheated in the room across the hall from Ponder's bedroom, waking them up every night when he was caught in the act, leading to almost his entire side of the family, essentially the only family Ponder had ever known because their father didn't like them interacting with their mum's side of the family, disavowed them as revenge. You could also technically classify Ponder being evicted as drama, but in reality, them being evicted from their home by their parental grandparents who deliberately called the house to tell them they'd left a little present in their mailbox so that they would go out and find the eviction notice is and was obviously traumatic. But once again, Ponder highlights the example of their friend lying to them, which would seem like drama. But when you go into the full explanation, it's very obvious that isn't the case, because their friend lied to them in order to make them think that they'd essentially mocked a mentally ill SA survivor to the point of taking their own life. As Ponder says, all of these examples are considered drama under the definition that Omnia provided. But obviously, these are all very traumatic experiences that would have massive impacts on the rest of Ponder's life, and it's incredibly funny that Omnia's in this video saying most people understand this and acting as if they, in any way, understand how to define the two and explain the two as if it's a simple and straightforward process, and you can define drama and trauma in black and white, be-all, end-all, no context required labels, when it does not work that way. And even then, drama and trauma are different person to person. Something that could be drama for one person could be traumatic to another. This list is fucked. How did Omnia think they were the person who had the right to speak on this?
Most of the time, the way that I distinguish the two is it something that happens on any odd given day, right? Does a loved one die any odd given day? Does someone get harassed and stalked and abused on any odd given day? Does someone fear for their life on any odd given day?
They definitely can if they're in a long-term abusive relationship.
No.
Okay, I guess Omnia's just solved any abusive relationship that could go on for a long period of time. They just don't happen, or they aren't traumatic, I guess. This video is really poorly written. They should have not recorded completely unscripted in front of a camera like this, because it hasn't gone well. Or at least I hope this was not scripted. Because if they sat down, wrote all of this, and then determined afterwards that it was perfect and there was nothing wrong with it, I'd be very concerned.
If you have a falling out with a friend group, have an argument with your parents, have any other little thing that happens and it's just sort of an inconvenience, you can still have a negative reaction to it. Sometimes you can even have somatic symptoms of drama, but that doesn't tend to last as long or be as life-changing as someone who went through a traumatic event. That's mainly the two difference.
Except this makes completely no sense, gatekeeps what can be considered trauma and goes against everything Ponder explained in their comment. No, this isn't how the distinction of drama and trauma should ever be determined. And all this serves to do is give people in the audience who want to hate on someone an excuse to invalidate trauma they're going through.
But I think it's very obvious that just thinking about it at the top of your head, you can find a handful of instances where YouTubers and content creators demonstrated the fact that they don't know the simple distinction between what should be considered drama and what should be considered trauma.
And neither do you. But I'm glad you considered being hypocritical as a point of drama in your previous section, because I feel that also applies to you here.
Judging by the amount of responses this question got, I think it's fairly obvious that not enough content creators are critical of themselves or how their content may actually be a detriment to those who suffer as a result of these events.
The irony. And that's not even mentioning the fact that here, Omnia says not enough creators are critical of themselves, but when Omnia was criticized for this video, they were deleting comments critical of them. So again, I'm glad you know that being hypocritical is drama, because you're very guilty of it.
I'd like to keep Technoblade's section relatively short because this is, in a way, an ongoing situation.
Now, I just want to put this here quickly. I want to acknowledge that in my tweet responding to this video initially, I mentioned that Omnia referred to the Technoblade situation as ongoing, but Omnia did elaborate in their follow-up video to this one that I'd misunderstood what they were saying, and I respect that. So, I'll take that on the chin. I made a mistake there.
That brings me to the last situation I want to talk about, which has to do with the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp trial. I'm just gonna come out and say it. I very much dislike this trial. Everyone on social media talking about it so frivolously and without regard at the height of the trial truly made me feel sick to my stomach, and as someone who has trauma of my own regarding topics that were frequently talked about within the trial, I was deeply triggered by a majority of the bullshit coming out about it. I don't want to give the details of the trial any runtime since I'll be very forward and honest about this, I didn't even watch it. I physically could not. Those who know what happened to me last December understand why, and those who don't, that's okay too. You don't need to. I say this to be transparent. I can't, nor do I want to speak on the fine details of the case. However, what I will say is the amount of coverage regarding the court proceedings were completely unnecessary and overwhelmingly saturated with clip compilations like Johnny Depp owning Amber Heard the moment Amber Heard knew she fucked up in court, and even TikTok sounds mocking Amber's alleged sexual assault. And literally the captions on some of these TikToks are even more harrowing, with them asking Amber why she didn't thank him. Like, if she didn't consent to it, then she didn't want any of that to happen to her. So why would she thank him? It's insane. Shit like this is what makes the case so diabolical and why I avoid the trial like the plague. What's worse is that this behavior is not just on TikTok or other social media platforms. If you wanted, you could find some of the biggest names known on YouTube and find videos and clips of them mocking Amber Heard's testimony. Even individuals who have very little to do with the commentary community like Jacksepticeye or PewDiePie.
No. My dog stepped on a bee. We took him to the vet.
I actually managed to squeeze out a tear. You see, that's how it's done. That's how you actually cry. You believe in the things you're saying.
Next meme involves private information, trauma, physical and emotional abuse. But I just hate this bitch so much that it's worth memeing. Amber Heard, also known as Amber Turd. She speaks exactly how people do when you reverse something like too many times and you start going like, so like, I think what the thing about the thing is like, I just am speaking like I haven't thought about this at all. Anyway, guys. I mean, obviously I'm not like, you should probably think about what you're gonna say in a trial, but it's so bizarre. Like, what the fuck is she doing with her face?
My dog.
This is an actress?
We went to the vet and went on.
She just shows she's like the worst actress of all time. My dog stepped on a bee. Oh yeah? Yeah, but Amber makes those kind of faces. Have you seen it? Have you seen the trial where she's just like all of a sudden?
I just see the memes.
Where you're missing. Well, that's why you're such a fence sitter, dude. If you've seen, you know, like unequivocally, she's insane, dude.
My dog stepped on a bee.
My child spilled my tea.
Jimmy Savile shagged me.
She keeps making these faces.
She's an actress, Felix, an actress. You wouldn't understand.
You're not supposed to act in court. You're supposed to tell the truth. And she's a lousy goddamn actress for that matter. God damn.
Dude,
my dog stepped on a bee. Yeah, I feel bad for her lawyers that have to like retell her lies as if they're truth. It's really funny.
Now, I understand that some people see celebrities and automatically think that their life is one big drama and everyone is entitled to commentate on their private business, but as popular content creators themselves, I feel like Jacksepticeye and PewDiePie would know better than anyone about how uncomfortable it is for people to try and pry into your life more than you're comfortable sharing.
Omnia? No, they weren't prying into Amber Heard's life more than she was comfortable sharing. It was a publicly televised court case that they discussed for very small segments for comedic bits in a video. This wasn't them prying into Amber Heard's life. This was a public televised event which proved by court decision that Amber Heard had defamed Johnny Depp and lied about the information discussed here. As far as all of us are aware, PewDiePie and Jacksepticeye were mocking someone who lied about Johnny Depp to try and ruin their career and also was allegedly physically abusive towards him for her weird facial gestures when discussing her dog stepping on a bee.
And I know that people will say, hey, that's the trade-off that comes with being famous or making money by being in the public eye. And I understand that and agree with that to a certain extent, but once your viewers or fans begin to undermine your boundaries and attempt to subvert them, treating your desire to keep private about certain things as an inconvenience and feeling entitled to you, that's where shit like this becomes dangerous and you're no longer seen as a whole or complete person, but just a thing that people gawk at and derive entertainment from.
Again, I don't want to harp on this too much, but this was a publicly televised court case. Nobody was digging themselves into private information here. I don't see why you need to maliciously repaint the story to fit a narrative that makes it look like PewDiePie and Jacksepticeye were prying into Amber Heard's private life and private information because they made gags in a video. video.
Why is it that we as commentators or viewers or just people who are members of society feel like this is okay to do?
Why is it that you, Omnia, decided to steal and plagiarize another artist's work for the sake of a thumbnail, speed art in a video, and a tweet where you never credit them or otherwise even reference that you got inspiration from them? An artist known on Instagram as Meg_Icarp posted an artwork of Raven from Teen Titans, captioned Azarath Metrion. Omnia would then steal the entire idea, posing, etc. of that artwork and recreate it without ever crediting the original artist, effectively plagiarizing it. And I mean, this is pretty blatant. And they even stuck a little image of Raven in the top right corner, which to most people would imply that was what Omnia was basing their artwork off, when in reality it was Megacarp's work that Omnia just heartlessly stole. Now, I understand that Omnia has resolved this in private with Megacarp, but this isn't the first time Omnia's done something like this. On Omnia's art channel, Neomations, they posted a video titled Manic Depression and Animation. And lo and behold, a scene in this video is quite literally traced directly from the animator's silent voice. Instead of stealing from a artist with 150,000 followers this time, Omnia is stealing from a minimum wage artist who's working ridiculous hours in Japan. So, in my opinion, this is much worse. Now, after the allegations of plagiarizing Megacarp's work came to light, Omnia initially apologized. They admitted they didn't give credit where they should have, worked to correct it, and talked out things privately with the artist. They said this was a mistake that they should have addressed sooner, and they apologized for not being direct about it publicly until now. And honestly, I thought this is where the situation would end. But then yesterday, Omnia released a response to Peach's video. And it was even worse than the first video, so let's just get right into it.
First of all, let's talk about this drawing. This drawing was originally created by the artist Megacarp on Instagram, who I follow and really admire. Her art is super cute, and I've always felt that our styles were somewhat similar since both mine and hers value simplicity. I was scrolling through her Instagram account and saw this drawing, and since Teen Titans is my ultimate comfort show, I decided, hey, these expression drawings of Raven are super cute. What if I tried drawing them in my style? So I did. Here's a 30-second version of the speed paint for your convenience. Now, a lot of people have accused me of tracing her art, which you can very clearly see I did not. Some people even claim that I copied her colors and character design.
Omnia copied the colours, expressions, poses, character design, style, and composition.
I'm going to be honest, I don't really know how one isn't expected to do that for a pre-existing character like Raven from Teen Titans. But yeah, if we're going to go by that logic, technically anyone who draws fan art of any character from a TV show, movie, video game, anime, or otherwise is now copying colors and character designs. So yeah, I suppose I did copy Raven's color palette and design, specifically from her Teen Titans Go version, which is why Raven's Teen Titans Go character was in the corner of the page when I dropped the work in progress. What I didn't do though is use Meg's color palette. As you can see here, the colors are drastically different, and thus this claim is false. Now, I will admit I did heavily reference Megacarp's work without giving proper credit where credit was due initially, and once I realized my error, I corrected my mistake and apologized to Meg privately in DMs as soon as I could. I essentially said exactly what I had just clarified earlier with the intent to clear up any misinformation that Meg might have heard. I made sure to clarify to Meg that I didn't trace her art despite what certain others were alleging, showed her the speed paint proving that it was my own work, and elaborated that I definitely should have added credit in the video itself initially. I wanted to apologize for not doing so in the first place to the artist it affected the most, which was the artist that I had so heavily referenced from, Meg. She accepted my apology, and we also came to a cordial agreement that if I were to study or heavily reference her work again in the future, to just run it by her before posting it, which, to me, is a very understandable and fair request of her to pose. I also asked her for permission to share these DMs, to which she accepted. Here's the DMs in question. This is what I said after clarifying everything to her. Once again, I apologize for making you uncomfortable in any way, and I'll be sure not to post the colored version of it anywhere without your express permission. I'm sorry you were dragged into this, and I'm sorry it happened so unexpectedly. I understand that you must have felt surprised and confused initially, but I just wanted to clear any of your questions, concerns, or suspicions up in DMs. Let me know if you need anything else, and I'm also open to discussing whatever. Take care. She responded with, "Aw, hi, thanks so much for reaching out. Yeah, just for future reference, I'm totally alright with people referencing my art for practice, but I'd rather they not post it without asking me first worse if it's very heavily referenced. But you're totally right, I don't really engage with Twitter a lot, so the primary emotion for me was just surprise and confusion. No anger over here. I really appreciate you reaching out and communicating with me though, and I hope you know I have no hard feelings at all. Best wishes. I ended the conversation with, I will keep that in mind. And now that I think about it, I definitely should have credited you at the beginning of the video itself, but it slipped my mind, so I apologize for that too. No hard feelings at all over here. Just wanted to make sure you know that I'm apologetic for my mistake and will be sure not to repeat the same mistake again. These DMs were made July 24th, and my final reply was made on July 27th, which were days before Hopeless Peach's video came out on July 28th.
Okay, this is all fine and good. I appreciate that you apologized to the artist in private and said that you would credit them if you ever did something like this in the future. The problem is, right after, you then tried to use this to go after Peach's video. But that makes absolutely no sense, because there was no possible way Peaches could have known this because you made this public on the 28th, the same day Peach's video went up. There was no way they were gonna see this before the video went up, and thus you can't use this as a point to discredit them. This is just disingenuous.
I do think it's a little strange that Hopeless Peaches made this video 4 days after Meg and I had already handled the concern privately and cordially. I do wish Peaches had reached out to Meg and asked if she was apologized to while working on her video. That way, the situation wouldn't have needed to have been blown out of proportion in the way that it was, especially since everything was already handled privately between me and Meg by the time her video was released.
This is fair enough. I think it probably would have been better for everyone if Peaches had reached out to Meg in private before making their video. However, I don't think they necessarily needed to, as they were only going by the posts available publicly, and also this criticism could also be applied to you, me, and various other people on many of the dramas we've discussed.
Now, for this section of the video, I wanted to rapid-fire debunk some of the misinformation spread within Hopeless Peach's video regarding the art, especially since she did get at least a couple things wrong. The first bit of misinformation has to do with Magikarp being a smaller and lesser-known artist, which Peaches claims that she is.
They could have just used this as a chance to promote a lesser-known and talented artist by stating that they were inspired by their work.
Oh wow, that was quite impressive how you completely misinterpreted what they said and twisted their words to fit your narrative. Peaches never said Magikarp was a smaller artist. Peaches just said they were lesser known, and not even in comparison to you, just in general. They're a lesser known artist in general, which I think is a perfectly valid statement to make, but you completely misinterpreted, intentionally or otherwise, to make it seem like Peaches was saying that they were a smaller artist that you were stealing from, which wasn't the case.
The second question has to do with the thumbnail being a monetary issue, which Peaches also claims is a problem.
Not only that, but using it as your thumbnail now makes it a monetary issue. So, yeah, I just don't know.
So, is the thumbnail truly a monetary issue? Also, no, not really. Raven is a character created under DC Comics, and she has been around since October 1980. There's nothing particularly unique about a side profile drawing of Raven, especially since neither Meg nor I own Raven as a character. In this way, I would argue that the thumbnail is not a monetary issue, considering that neither of us own the character, and there isn't anything particularly unique or transformative about the posing.
I'm in utter fucking disbelief. You copied an artist's work, quite literally plagiarizing it, used it for your thumbnail, which garners views and makes you profit, and you don't see the issue there? You don't see an issue with the fact you were profiting from what was, at that point, uncredited artwork you'd plagiarized from someone else? You see nothing wrong with that. You think that because they don't own Raven, they don't own the copyright for their own artwork, and that there isn't an issue with you making money from copying and not crediting their own work? You have to be intentionally dishonest here. There is no way you didn't understand what Peaches was trying to say.
On to the second part of this video. Here, I wanted to name off a few of the unfair claims that were made by larger creators, specifically Harley TBS and Hopeless Peaches.
Whoa, hold your horses there. Calm down, Omnia. There's no need to inflate my ego by calling me a larger creator. I promise you, you're not going to be able to win me over to your side and make me go less harsh on you because of it.
Let's start off with Harley's tweet. They stated, "This video is fucking terrible." They refer to Technoblade's death as an ongoing situation, plagiarized art for the thumbnail, and called out PewDiePie for prying into Amber Heard's life more than they were comfortable sharing because he discussed their public court case.
Before we even delve into their responses to this tweet, I just want to point out that it's really funny that Omnia read this tweet despite the fact they have me blocked on Twitter. I love that they're watching my account from behind a block.
I think Harley misunderstood the points I was trying to make in my video, so let me clarify myself. I wasn't referring to Technoblade's death as the ongoing situation. I was referring to the fact that people were continuously making videos and attempting to profit off of his death as the ongoing situation.
That's completely fair, and I believe everyone should disregard the Technoblade mention in my tweet. The rest of my tweet, though, is completely valid.
As for the plagiarizing art claim, that is untrue as well. As Meg had stated, I heavily referenced her art and recognized that it was still my art that I had drawn and freehanded on my my own. I hadn't traced nor copied Meg's drawing line for line, which is what accusing someone of plagiarism insinuates.
Wait, Omnia, wait. Did you even read the definition you just put on screen? Because it reads, and I quote, the practice of taking someone else's work or ideas and passing them off as one's own, which is unequivocally, undoubtedly, undisputably what you did with Meg's work. You presented it without any credit as if it was your own, you copied their idea, and effectively copied their work, though to a lesser extent, and passed it off without any credit, making it look like it was your own work. You plagiarized it. Literally, undoubtedly, as it's defined in the definition you show.
Lastly, I didn't call out PewDiePie for prying into Amber Heard's life more than they were comfortable sharing because he discussed their public court case. I stated that mocking Amber Heard for her alleged sexual assault and testimony was unfair regardless of whether or not it's true, especially since it was coming from someone who openly recognized that his jokes were in relation to trauma, private information, and physical abuse.
Oh my god, there is so much wrong here, it's actually insane. Firstly, in my tweet, I directly quote the thing they said in their video, so I don't know why they're disputing it because it's literally there. I mean, here's the clip.
But as popular content creators themselves, I feel like Jacksepticeye and PewDiePie would know better than anyone about how uncomfortable it is for people to try and pry into your life more than you're comfortable sharing.
And secondly, PewDiePie wasn't even talking about their traumatic situation and the allegations they presented against Johnny Depp. They were mocking the fact Amber Heard had delivered the statement, "My dog stepped on a bee," with such a funny and insane reaction. Why would you so blatantly lie? It just looks worse for you. What was even the point of this video? Nobody would have cared if you hadn't responded and then reignited the flame of this drama. You'd said sorry. That's literally all anybody ever wanted here.
Now, let's move on to this clip within Hopeless Peach's video where she presents my points as being contradictory or hypocritical.
How Omnia presents this opinion quickly turns sour by defining what people should and shouldn't talk about.
Someone allegedly being harassed and stalked for a better part of a decade is not entertaining or a drama you should be quote-unquote invested in as a viewer. Don't get me wrong, I'm definitely not saying that content creators should completely stop talking about traumatic events.
Oh, I guess can still talk about? Not really sure. You're giving mixed signals, Omnia.
Emily made a 2-hour-long video detailing Creepshow Art and her husband's stalking and harassment campaign, which lasted a better part of a decade. There were points in Emily's video where she became choked up just recalling the events that had happened to her and clearly was very, very distressed. However, some people looked at her situation for pure entertainment. I highly recommend you start by watching my Creepshow Art series, which is linked in the description below. Someone allegedly being harassed and stalked for a better part of a decade is not entertaining or a drama you should be quote-unquote invested in as a viewer.
I highly recommend you start by watching my Creepshow Art series, which is linked in the description below.
Honestly, I don't even see why Omnia's trying to argue this. This was very obviously hypocritical and contradictory. Peach's point was valid, and you're wasting time by rebutting it instead of just acknowledging it and moving on.
The last tweet of this section of the video is from Hopeless Peach's original thread. She stated, "Just went to go watch the Omnia video where the plagiarism happened to see if it was traced or just referenced. And I should have had it on mute because they were saying, quote, trauma is from abuse or violence, and drama is just lukewarm stuff on the same level as having a bad grade." End quote. Before I keep reading this thread, I don't think Hopeless Peaches can provide a timestamp of me saying that because I never said that. I understand possibly being outraged over a misinterpretation of my video, but that doesn't give one the excuse of being hyperbolic.
Peaches doesn't need to give you a timestamp. In fact, I'll just give you a clip instead. Because while Peaches paraphrased because this was a tweet, what they said is incredibly reflective of what you said in the video.
When you want to distinguish between trauma and drama, the easiest way is to run a litmus test about how severe it is. So with trauma, it tends to be abuse, threats of violence, death, things like that. Whereas with drama, those tend to be pretty lukewarm experiences that a lot of people go through. For example, having a falling out with a friend or getting a bad grade. I won't say that it's a response to me, who's mentioned the long-term effects of my drama, but it's very toxic. That's like if I went up to somebody who got trauma from breaking a bone during an activity and I was like, well, I have trauma due to X, which is more valid than yours. If you experience long-term psychological effects from an event that happened, it's trauma. No need to say, quote, mine is better than yours. It's damaging to everyone involved. Instead, can't we all silently, know already that dick measuring trauma is cringe? Thanks. Ugh. I'm still not over cheating on your partner as being classed as lukewarm drama that can't cause trauma or anxiety issues.
As mentioned prior, this is where Omnia classifies that they meant cheating on a test, which I don't believe. But if you do, that's fine.
Like I said previously, I do want to give Peaches the most charitable interpretation I possibly can, but I also am unsure where exactly she got the idea that I was comparing traumas or stating that anyone's trauma is more valid than another's.
Oh yeah, I can point you to the exact timestamp. At 6:09 in your video, you say that cheating on someone, gossiping about someone, being rude to someone, backstabbing someone, spreading rumors about someone, and acting hypocritical are all drama, when some of those actually wouldn't be. They would be traumatic situations, and you've just invalidated the experiences of those people who've struggled through traumatic situations like those. Though I think Ponder's comment explained that good enough. With that being said though, I'm tired. I'm tired of arguing with people like Omnia. I'm tired of wasting my time on petty dramas like these. Have your opinions, take whatever you want from this video. I'll see you next time. If you are new to the channel, I'd appreciate if you could subscribe to help me reach the big 100k before my birthday in 4 days. I'm gonna be an adult. Isn't that a terrifying thought? I hope all of you who are older than me feel very old knowing you are older than me and I'm the adult now. With that being said, I appreciate the support. I'll see you next time. Peace.
Said she wanna rock with a nigga like me. I'm a stylish guy. Spend a little guap with a nigga like me. We can catch a fly. Said she wanna rock with a nigga like me.